Hello everyone, today we're making a quick bouillabaisse, and that's a traditional French fish soup. I grew up in Switzerland, but my neighbors were from southern France and they cooked the real thing from scratch, and I learned very quickly to recognize the smell and always invite myself over when they were cooking that. And a funny story I want to share with you about that is, as an adult I started making it again, and a few years ago my husband and I had a long weekend over Christmas visiting family, and we decided to do the real bouillabaisse from scratch, and we pulled out a recipe online, and right then and there we should have known this could be a problem because it was 4 pages long, and the very first paragraph said, go to the store, pick a good looking lobster from the tank, go home and boil water. And that day my husband and I decided it was totally appropriate to take some shortcuts. So welcome to the Lazy Kitchen. This is the place where we take these complicated 4-page recipes and we turn them into 10-minute or less recipes that are still affordable and healthy. Our basic rules are lazy, seems to be everyone's favorite rule. 10 minutes or less prep time, little to no prep or cleanup really. Today there's one exception, is I'm going to have you cut a vegetable, and we're still going to do it under 10 minutes. The thrifty recipes, we try to keep the recipes as affordable as possible without losing nutrition. We want to make sure you can feed your family with those recipes. And then healthy is we make all-in-one meals, all-in-one being you have your protein, a healthy starch, which is going to be gluten-free because of my celiac, and then at least 2 vegetables, because it's really important to make sure that we include those in these all-in-one recipes so you don't have to worry about go hunting for them. So I'm going to tell you the ingredients we're going to use and where we're going to take some smart shortcuts to still get the flavor. The original recipe is fantastic, but you have to like boil carcasses of fish guts and whatnot for days to get that flavor. We're not going to do that, but we still can get something that tastes really pretty good. So as far as the things that you will need, it's really pretty simple. You can do this stovetop on a good pan if you have a good stove. Just for the sake of convenience of recording here, I'm going to do it with an electric cooker. This is my old dog, my Instapot. I think it's a 6-quart, but whatever you have that allows you to saute and then turn into a slow cook will work. By the way, this recipe is very quick. You'll have your soup in about 15 minutes. The prep time is 10, but you only cook it maybe an extra 5 minutes and then it will be done. The one thing that you'll need today that I normally don't have you do is you'll need a knife and something to cut the vegetables. The only thing that I'm not able to find in the pre-cut section of vegetables, at least not without paying an arm and a leg, is celery. But celery is easy. It's basically washed. Just give it a chop and it'll go right in. So you'll need your cooking pot or stovetop pot, knife and a cutting board, simple things to just cut open packages like a scissor and a can opener. The main protein is obviously going to be a fish and or seafood, and you can do absolutely what you want. You want to get a pretty generous amount. That's going to be, it's otherwise a pretty light recipe. I just dug up whatever I had in the freezer. They were individually packed. I think there was a flounder, there may have been maybe a piece of cod, and then we had some leftover cooked shrimp that was supposed to go in a cocktail, and I'm going to use them for that as well, but any mix of fish and seafood will do. Cost-wise, you're probably going to spend $6 to $7, $8 of really good fish and seafood mix for a fairly large recipe. The starch is going to come in the form of potatoes. For the sake of being a quick recipe, I usually get plain shredded potatoes at the store. Look at the back of the ingredients to make sure they add little to nothing. My favorite brand is one called Mr. Dell's because it's just potatoes. It was out of stock at the store when I went there, so this is still pretty clean as potatoes, and I think it has a tiny bit of dextrose with it, and that's it. still, you know, I think the whole bag was like $3, and you're gonna use maybe a third of it. It's like $1.50, $1 to $1.50 of potatoes for your starch. Your vegetables, we're gonna use a bag of frozen cut onions. This one happened to be onions with a few other things, but it really doesn't matter. We're gonna use shredded carrots or sliced carrots, whatever your store happens to have. These are like $1.80. I'm not gonna use maybe all of it. Frozen cut carrots would be a total acceptable substitute as well. And here's my oven going off. Celery, you know, $2, you're gonna use half of it, about $1. Now let's talk a little bit about the things gonna make this yummy, and a few of those will probably surprise you. You're obviously gonna want some broth, and you can pick a really good broth, whatever you have, you know, that's maybe a couple dollars for that, and you supplement with water, salt. The one ingredient that's maybe a little out of the ordinary for this one is the fennel seeds. Now, a lot of the traditional fish soup will use actual fennel bulb, which is not easy to find, and especially not in a pre-cut or frozen version. So we're gonna use the celery, and we're gonna bring out the flavor using fennel seeds. You can find fennel seeds pretty much anywhere these days. It's dirt cheap, it will last you forever. If you have friends, if you go to an Indian restaurant, they always have them. Grab a few with you to take home and to make your fish soup. And the fish soup is a little bit spicy, typically with some sort of hot pepper. I'm going to use some cayenne. That's what I have on hand. We're going to use tomato paste. These things are a little over $1. Maybe can, depending on how tomato-ish you like it, you can use more or less. And then the other two secret ingredients that really increase the flavorfulness of the soup, of the fish soup. This one is more optional, but if you have any fish sauce on hand because you've made some Asian recipe, you can use that. And really the magic ingredient is a can of anchovies. And I know some people are about ready to recoil, but for those of you, remember, if you've ever enjoyed ranch sauce, you like it because they use anchovies to make that unique ranch taste. So if you like ranch, you'll like the soup. Don't be scared by the anchovies. Okay, so I'm gonna try to get my stuff out of the way so we can see the accountability clock. And I'm gonna start my Instapot. So we're gonna saute the stuff first. If you're on the stove top, you just crank it on high. I'm gonna start this. And we're going to start with some good oil. Olive oil was traditionally what we use in the bouillabaisse. The bouillabaisse is not a particularly calorie-rich food, so if you need to add a little bit of calorie, I would say just add a little more oil. I'm going to throw in the onions to get them good brown. Okay, and this is where we're going to have you make an exception to our laziness by chopping just a little bit of that. And this thing, I just rinsed it under the water, the first batch that I used. If anyone of you knows where to get pre-cut frozen fennel, let me know. I have not found it. And I lied, we need one more utensil. That would be something like this. Oops. Okay. While these are browning, you can get a few other things ready. So I'm going to open my tomato paste. And I'm going to cut the bags of fish. By the way, don't worry about cutting the fish when you put it in there. Fish will kind of flake in there. It's going to be the last thing that we add. You know, we don't like to overcook the fish. we all need to put more fish in our diet, fish and seafood, and so hopefully this is one of those recipes, every time I serve it, people just love it, and even people who are not fish people like it. And my videographer can attest to that, because she's had it. So, very good. And let's see what else can I get ready. So I'm going to add my celery. One other optional thing I would say is garlic. Garlic's pretty traditional. I may actually grab some. So I'm first going to put all of my vegetables in there and the potatoes. Whoops. You can decide how much potato to use depending on how starchy you want this to be. I'm going to add some fish sauce. It's nice to put those things on the front end. They'll really add your flavor. Fennel, you know, maybe like a teaspoon or so will add the flavor. Oh, that smells good. And you can already add the anchovies. Make sure you put the oil. The oil has just an incredible flavor. Good. So, salt is going to be to taste. So usually I'll wait until you've got this thing going pretty well. I'm going to add maybe half of the tomato paste. I can always use the other half for some other things I'm going to cook. The tomato paste stays good in the fridge probably for a week to 10 days if you can cover it up. So. Before I forget, I'm going to grab the garlic. Maybe a nice teaspoon or so. I'm going to add, and one of those I think is open, so for those of you who like a lemony flavor, you can put in a little bit of lemon juice in there as well. Otherwise, traditionally it's going to be served with a wedge of lemon that you squeeze in at the end. And I'm going to add a little bit more. And the bouillabaisse is really one of those peasant soups, so you know it can look a little bit coarse. I'm going to give it a minute or so to really get to a nice boil, and then I'll add the fish and seafood last so you can get things things ready for the garbage when they have time and put them away. I'm getting hungry, so it's like torture to have to see it come to a slow boil. The vegetables should be soft but not soggy, so don't overcook the bouillabaisse, both for the sake of the fish and the vegetables. Shredded potatoes usually take maybe 15 minutes or so to cook. All depends on how hot your cooker is or how hot your stove top is. So. Okay. And I'm going to add shrimp. My fish. And I'm gonna let this cook. I'll stir it and I'll check on it maybe in about 15 minutes, and either it'll be ready to eat and I'll cut some lemon, or we'll add a little salt and give it a little bit longer. So I hope you enjoyed a very easy version, still tasty version of the bouillabaisse. We'll see you next time.